We're here. Talking season is officially here. SEC Media Days are this week. I'm on the road. I'm traveling. I'm on my way to Dallas. So when you're seeing this, I'm there. I've got some burning questions for Kirby Smart, for Carson Beck, for Malachi Starks, for everybody at Media Days, and I will do my best to get these questions rattled off or at least relayed to them. But I want to share with you some of the things that I think, whether we deserve an answer or not, these are the things that I want to know about the Georgia football program right now. So let's not waste any time. My first one, I want to ask Kirby Smart, what's the message, man? What is your message to this 2024 team, to the SEC, to the world? It's a different SEC world now. Texas, Oklahoma, conference realignment, it's official. We get a 12-team playoff. Things are going to be different. Last season was considered disappointing. How can a season that ends in an Orange Bowl where you win by 60 points be considered disappointing? Well, that's because the expectation was a national championship. The expectation was a three-peat. His message was about that last year. It was about fighting complacency. That was really the whole message. I'm going to read a little bit for you. The threat for us is complacency. The first thing you have to do is acknowledge that it's a threat. Like if you acknowledge that the complacency is a threat, it's the first step towards stopping it out. So we look for two things when we look for people to join our organization. I'm not talking about players, I'm talking about anybody. Do they love football and do they embrace being part of bigger something than themselves? That was his message last year. It was my thought that part of that message was a response to just the whole concept of the 3P last year. And now that's all over, right? So what is the message this year? Is it, hey, look, we're here to rule college football now. Nick Saban's gone. I know he's not going to say something exactly like that, but he talked about 2 years ago, right? The 2022 offseason, heading into that season, we will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. That was his message then, right? After you come off a national championship, what is it? Well, we are the hunters, not the people getting hunted. So that's what he said. I want to know what it is to this version of the team. It's not up to me to speculate what it is really, so I'm not going to sit here and just come up with a bunch of fake messages. But my burning question, and that's, you don't have to ask them, that's going to get answered right off the bat when they do start media days, and you'll get to hear that on Tuesday when we actually get to talk to them. But what do you tell this team that's different, that's got Carson Beck, that's got an offense that is really exciting, has some turnover on defense that he himself seemed concerned about earlier in this offseason? So that's my first burning question. Secondly, and I think this is fair, and I actually didn't think I would be listing this in my burning questions because I, like everyone else, has been working under assumptions, and probably not good to be working under assumptions, especially in football. What does the backfield actually look like? What does the running back room actually look like? Trevor Etienne, there's a lot of excitement. He's a big name, obviously younger brother of Travis Etienne, Clemson great, ACC great, solid NFL running back. There's more attention to you when you're a player like that. The numbers don't suggest that he's some superstar running back, right? Good couple of years at Florida in a rotation. Now that he's going to Georgia, there's an expectation that he's going to take over Georgia's backfield. He's going to make Georgia's backfield better. Dean and I talked about this in a riding home the other day. I do think that the obvious assumption, the answer is, yes, Trevor Etienne is the lead back. Maybe he is a workhorse type of running back. But what is the actual plan? Because what have we seen? Even when you had a Nick Chubb and a Sonny Michel, you rotate, you get guys in and out. I think the days of running backs getting 20-plus carries a game for Georgia are probably over, partially because of how well they recruit and get a lot of bodies in there. But keeping people fresh has been one of the reasons why Georgia has been so good over the last few years. Look at their offensive line. What's one of the reasons why those guys are so good? They're not tired. They're getting in and out of the game more than most units across the country. So with the running backs, is Branson Robinson going to be healthy enough to take off part of the load for Trevor Etienne? Is he going to be a real contributor? Or is this thing going to take time with him? That was a major injury, the ruptured patellar tendon. Do you trust Roderick Robinson, right? That's probably not the right question, but is he ready to take on a bigger role in Georgia's backfield? What do those freshmen look like? Probably not going to answer that question, right? Because they have only been there for a couple months. When you talk about Nate Frazier and Dwight Phillips, they've only been there over the summer. But the real boil down the question, is it dumb to assume that Trevor Etienne is just the lead running back and he's going to be this workhorse for Georgia? Because I think the proof in the pudding is that Georgia's not doing that anymore. But is he different? Is he really the DeAndre Swift level running back that he's rumored to be, and that Kirby seems to think that he is? And I'm not saying he's not, and I'm not saying he is, but I think it's a real question. What does this thing actually look like? How are the carries going to be broken down? Next, Carson. This one's more for Carson. I think you'll probably get a more raw answer. I don't know. Maybe we should ask them both. What's the chemistry with the receivers like this time around? Your two favorite targets, the two better weapons that Georgia's had in the last couple of years, are gone. And we know that a lot of Georgia's receivers are really good, despite, Bowers and Ladd being gone. Right? Dominic Lovett's no slouch. Kobe Young doesn't seem like a slouch. Ra Thomas is around. They've got Arian Smith, who's been around for a while. What is the difference for Carson? What is the confidence level? And is the chemistry with the receivers where you think it needs to be? Because they're not going to have either of those safety valves this time around, and things are going to be different. And I don't want to hear, you lose talent and you lose players every year. Favorite targets are favorite targets, and Brock Bowers more than qualifies for that. So I think that that's important. Is the chemistry with Dominic Lovett actually what we saw in the spring game? Is he really going to be that good? What's it like with Ra? What's it like, how's Anthony Evans coming around? I think that those are legitimate questions that we need to be asking, because if Carson's chemistry with the receivers hasn't improved, then why should we expect the situation to improve? We're working under a lot of assumptions with this Georgia football team in this offseason and acting like it's just going to be better, that things are going to be better. And maybe that's a delusional Georgia way to look at it, but I've been looking at it that way too. So, am I wrong too, is my question. How has the secondary looked in the offseason as opposed to the last few? And I don't mean, do you think the secondary is going to be better? Do you think that the secondary is going to be worse? But how has it actually looked? Because there's always been older leaders, and now that's Malachi Starks. And in that concept, I don't think that things are that different in terms of just having an older guy that's really talented in the room to lead. But Javon Bullard, Tyke Smith, Kamari Lassiter, pedigree guys that were winning championships. Right? And there's a lot of turnover in that room. You're going to have to place most of the starting lineup in that room. In terms of how it's actually looked in an off-season, are these guys, Kirby, are these guys prepared in the way that you've seen in the past? Or is this typical of a room that's seeing a lot of turnover? Is it typical or atypical? Right? And I would parlay that into discussing the defensive line specifically. Really not worried about the linebackers in any way. I think that those guys are ultra freak talented guys. But I'd parlay that secondary question into the defensive line question. Have you seen any sort of difference in a Nazir Stackhouse or a Warren Brinson? Guys that decided to come back because they're, one, didn't win the national championship again, really wanted to do that again, and two, didn't get the answer that they wanted when they met with agents and scouts and got their draft grades back in January, February. How have guys like that looked? Is there a difference? Is the difference that they wanted there? When you look back at the past couple of years and the past couple of off seasons with them being the guys. And that can extend into other guys in the room like Christian Miller and Jordan Hall, players that are now entering their second, third years at Georgia. It's not just for Warren Brinson and for Nazir Stackhouse, guys who were subject to maybe go to media days. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Nazir Stackhouse wasn't one of the players that's represented, but they went with the big dogs, and Carson Beck and Malachi Starks and Michael Williams, probably knowing that those were the ones that people would want to hear from the most. But in terms of leadership, what is different among these leaders heading into this offseason as opposed to when you're coming off of national championships? Kirby is going to answer part of that with it's not different, and you got to prepare the same way every day. But I think that there definitely could be a difference. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. Again, thanks for watching. Link is down below for the newsletter.